There's a crafter who's sure all that's cardboard is gold, and he's building a stairway to his paints. Hi, I'm Dave, and this is Dave's Weird Project. Today, I'm going to show you how I made a paint rack to hold my miniature paints and replace the kind of bulky case that they were in. It was a little hard to work with. Let's take a look. This is the carrying case that came with the Reaper paint set I bought, and it's what we're replacing. It's fine on its own, but it doesn't really fit for what I want to do. What I want to do is have a stepped rack with all the paints easily visible. It's easy to grab them and put them back. So I start planning out exactly how much space I need to hold the paints I have. I laid them out on this cardboard sheet and gave them a little space in between each one just to kind of see about how much room it would take up. I figured 6 to a row would be good, with a 1/4 inch all around to leave room for some supports and to make sure there's actual separation between them. So I marked out 6 circles and made sure that there was that 1/4 inch gap all around, and then cut out the strip and started cutting out the circles. Cutting the circles was the most arduous part of this whole thing. I used the utility knife for most of it, and then toward the end I switched over to the X-Acto knife and it went so much easier, and I was really annoyed that I didn't use it the whole time. So here's the first strip with all the circles cut out. The basic structure for each row is that this strip with the holes will be raised up about 1 inch, and then there'll be another strip below it that the paint bottles rest on. In order to make steps, I need risers, so I cut out a stepped wall piece, but I arranged it so that I would have another piece that was 1 step shorter. The plan is to glue this on the inside, and these risers will be the rests for the lower strips that the bottles sit on. And then once I had one set, I used it as a template to make the second set. Once both walls were dry, I glued them down to the main sheet with tacky glue, and I used some scrap strips of styrofoam to act as some extra support at the bottoms. I gave those plenty of time to set, and then did a dry fit of all the lower strips and a couple of the upper strips with the holes cut out, just to kind of make sure everything was fitting the way I wanted it to. I realized that 9 or 10 inches of single corrugated cardboard might get a little weak in the middle without any support. So I started preparing supports for both the resting strips and the strips with the holes cut out. The resting strips would need longer ones that go all the way down to the bottom of the thing, but in between they only need to be 1 inch. As I finished the supports for each strip, then I glued it into the piece, making sure to put glue on the bottom of each support and also the resting point on each riser. When I got to the last set, the tops of the walls kind of wanted to bow out a little bit, so I went and got this bar clamp out of the garage and just used it to hold everything in place while the glue set. It's not squeezing very hard, just enough to keep everything sort of right where it is. When I took the clamp off and turned things around, I realized that the top rest was intruding on the airspace of the next step down. Not ideal. But a little careful work with the utility knife and I was able to clean that up. Now the strips with the holes get glued on with their 1 inch supports in between them and the step below. I let all of that set overnight to dry, and then in the morning I spray painted it green. Because I can. Let that dry all morning, and then at lunchtime I set it on the shelf and started filling it in with my paints. It was really satisfying to teleport each one in one by one. There you have it, new rack. It's been working pretty well as I've painted some miniatures for the next video. And yeah, it was a short build, so it's going to be a short video. I did most of it while I was waiting for parts of the mausoleum from episode 11 to dry. I'll do all the standard pleading real quick. If you liked the video, please click like and subscribe and share and all that good stuff. If you want to support the channel director, there's some links below that Terry will make sure get put there. And yeah, so now let's do some lessons learned. I do these projects as much to learn something as to make something, so I like to put a little roundup at the end of the video what I think I learned. Lessons learned, the tacky glue, which I discovered in the mausoleum episode, it really shined here, held everything together super strong. You don't have to hold it there too long before it's kind of holding on its own, unless there's some extra forces involved, like when I had to put the clamp on the top. Also on that note, pay attention to where you put things. As you might remember, there's a part where I realized that top shelf was pushing into the area of the shelf below it, so it could have been easily prevented just by double checking before I put that clamp on and let it go. Also of note, using the one wall as a template for the other wall ended up a little bit taller. So I think I need to be a little more careful about that. Maybe make one template that I then use for the two real walls. So they both come from the same thing and hopefully end up the same size. And it didn't cause a huge problem, but sometimes putting the shelves down and having measured all the supports at exactly, 1 inch or whatever, it was occasionally, I had to bend the shelf a little bit to make it stay. It still works, it's fine, but the perfectionist in me was a little bit annoyed. Cutting out the holes for the paint bottles with the utility knife, like I said in the video, it took a long time and it was really difficult. And then it wasn't until toward the end that I tried something different. So I think a good lesson is, if a tool seems not quite right for the job, don't just keep using it. Like, pause, try something else real quick and see if it's going to be easier, especially if you've got a long way to go. So that about wraps it up for this one. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If you've ever built anything practical like this, let me know about that too. I'd love some more ideas. I want to do another one for my craft paints that I use on terrain. They're bigger bottles, both taller and a little bit larger diameter. And I think I want to do something, rather than bottles marching up, maybe bottles kind of diagonally held, if that makes sense. I don't know, wave my hands around, confuse the viewer. Anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care, everybody.